Show starts in 3 minutes.
Remember that birthday party when the youngsters kept calling for hamburgers until they nearly ate you out of house and home? As the chef that day, you were a sizzling success. Now try our delicious hamburgers and relive happy hours. We want you to listen to a sizzling invitation to come and get 'em at the concession stand.
Here's a food delicacy you'll surely enjoy. It's new, it's different. Hot Italian meatball sandwich. Just like Mama made. You'll find them freshly made in a crisp Italian roll at our refreshment stand.
Show starts in 1 minute.
Did you grow up with the NES, PlayStation, Star Wars, cartoons, and 80s TV? Do you like to think who would win in a fight between Batman and the Master Chief? Comics, games, movies, music, and TV. They're gonna tell you everything you need. Superheroes or not, they got your back. They're gonna save the world of geeks. Comics, games, movies, music, and TV. They're gonna tell you everything you need. Superheroes or not, they got your back. They're gonna save the world of This Week in Geek. This Week in Geek.
Hello. We are back with another. I guess have we done one of these before, Aaron? You and I together, just us?
I don't think so. No,
maybe not.
None.
Oh well, okay. Well, this might be the first time we've done a loose cannon episode where Birdman has been away. If you've been following everything, he's right now getting a bunch of medical stuff taken care of. So, the show must go on. We've been wanting to talk about a few of these, or I have at least for the last couple of weeks. And so we're going to actually do a 3-movie discussion. They're not going to be super in-depth or super long, but I guess one of them is sort of a movie.
Sort of.
And then one is a 3D horror film, and then one is, I'm going to say classic in quotes because it gets a lot of praise, but I think we might have different opinions on that. Science fiction film, Silent Running.
Yeah.
So the first thing we're going to talk about is the AGFA, or the American Genre Film Archives Horror Trailer Show. This was sent to me initially to check out. It's been remastered on Bluray. It's a collection of super rare trailers from the drive-in, from Grindhouse, B-movies, a lot of 60s and 70s and some 80s flicks that you might have heard of some. A lot of them you probably haven't heard of. And what they've done is collected them all together, presented them in a feature-length format where it has an intro that has like countdown. It's like 5 minutes till your movie starts, and then it's all these concessions advertisements that you would have seen in the 50s and 60s. And then I think about halfway through they do a break for intermission doing the same thing.
Yes, and I have to say I love those intermissions, and they talked about Hires root beer in one of them, and I haven't thought about Hires root beer since I was a kid.
Well, we have them here. It's just not as common anymore.
I haven't had Hires for decades, and I'm like looking around desperately to get cans now, and
it's weird because they were super popular here in Canada, like late 90s, early 2000s. Then they mostly disappeared, but now they've started showing up at like corner stores. The other one that was super popular back then was RC, like Royal Crown Cola, and that's very hard to find now.
I have that at my local supermarket.
Yeah, even though I think it's all bottled by the Cott Corporation, which is based up here. They do like the bottling for Coca-Cola and everything too, which is, Coca-Cola doesn't want you to know that they don't bottle their own stuff anymore. It's all done by like one big company.
Well, you'll have to try to send me like some Hires root beer, and I'll send you some RC.
If I can find it, for sure. Like the hard thing for us to find is Diet A&W. Unless you go to A&W, you cannot find it in cans, and bottles are hard to come by too.
I don't know offhand if I have that in my local supermarket, but I can write that down and look for it next time I'm there.
And the other one that we used to get, because it was dirt cheap, we used to go to the store and get 3-liter bottles of Faygo.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
With the giant mouth on the top. And you can't find them here anymore. For a while, Shasta had a 2.5-liter bottle, which was stupidly big looking too. But it's all sort of disappeared in the last 5-6 years or so. And you can't get Diet Mountain Dew here either. Like, it's funny how Canada is so much more health conscious when it comes to a lot of things. But I noticed that there's way more variety of diet and sugar-free drinks in the States. Here, we're pretty limited.
See, that's all I mean, okay, I'm a soda drinker, but I went to diet back like when I was 20 because I realized, oh my god, if I keep drinking this amount of caffeine. I'm sorry, we're going on to a weird tangent.
Let's do it.
I absolutely, that's all I drink is Diet Mountain Dew. Like when I have a soda, I mean, I drink tea, I drink water, I drink beer, but if I want to have a soda and have caffeine, I don't drink coffee. I Diet Mountain Dew. That's my thing. Well, I have a Diet Mountain Dew next to me right now.
That was like my thing as a kid. Like our family only drank diet. Like even my grandparents, like their thing was, and it's funny how now I view it as like it's okay, but as a kid I didn't care for it. They used to have Costco, I think it was Costco branded, not Kirkland. It was like some brand they had their diet caffeine free, and that was like my grandparents would have cases of 30 of them sitting around.
Wow.
Because they were like $2 for 30, and it's basically water with some color, right?
Yeah. With a little bit of flavor, yeah, sure.
Yeah, with just a tad and a little bit of caramel coloring. But our go-to as kids, if we wanted to have pop at home, we would get Diet Mountain Dew and Diet Orange Crush.
Oh God, Diet Orange Crush is great.
And
it is great.
And for a while there was Diet Grape Crush, which was not. It was like a test run here, and then it was gone.
Yeah.
But the Crush drinks have basically disappeared from Canada, except for regular. So you can't get the Diet. For a while, you could go to a drugstore here, a big chain that had them, and when they were bought out by a larger company, they for some reason no longer carried them. Diet Dr. Pepper was hard to find. Mountain Dew went through a big thing where they were gone. Like Mountain Dew entirely left Canada for like 2 or 3 years because of a law changed. You could not have caffeine in soft drinks that weren't caramel colored.
That's weird.
It was because
that's weird.
So it was a law about, I think Sprite had it in it or something, and they weren't allowed to. Some drug administration thing said that was the case. So that's when a lot of these started disappearing. And then what we noticed was it came back, but it wasn't called Mountain Dew. Well, or just Mountain Dew. It was Mountain Dew Charge. And they started marketing it as an energy drink. But it's not an energy drink. It was just Mountain Dew. But they got around it because energy drinks were classified in a different category than a soft drink.
That's weird. That is really weird.
So the label, when they brought it back, they had Diet that, and it was all the Dollarama stores, which is our big like Dollar General or Dollar Tree chain. They started carrying the Diets, and that was the only way to get them. And then poof, like 2 years ago, all gone. You can't. I don't think you can get Diet Mountain Dew at all in Canada. And it's
that's why. I mean, I'll drink other things when on my times that I have been in Canada. I usually just go for like Diet Coke or Diet Pepsi, whatever's there. But yeah, if I have my choice, it's Diet Mountain Dew.
I'm sure that there's a few like that we have that you don't have. Like, for a while, I know that I had friends in the States that couldn't get Barq's root beer, and that was available here, depending on I guess the state you were in or anything.
Yeah, we have Barq's here. Yeah.
Also, your cream soda is different than ours.
Yes, it is.
Ours is always pink.
Yeah, and it's weird.
well, when I had American cream soda, I'm like, first of all, it tastes more vanilla-y, but also, why is it see-through? Like, why isn't it neon pink?
And
it's like God intended.
What's great is the cream soda when it's handmade. We have a brewery here in town that actually makes sodas handmade.
Oh wow!
And handmade, cream soda. Oh man, you haven't. I mean, I'm not a cream soda person at all, but I'll drink that all day long. Love it. And if you've never tried it, one of our our Kroger here has a Kroger brand birch soda, and if you've never had birch soda before, that's something to try. And I'm sorry we've gone completely off from movies.
This is all related to movies because I would not. I never paid for the movie the movie drinks. My thing was to sneak in a bottle of Diet Mountain Dew, or if I had a friend that came up from the States and did a run and picked up stuff, it was Diet Mr. Pibb or Diet Pibb, because you can't get that here either.
Yeah.
Which to me is a crime against nature. Same with what was it? My favorite American snack is I think it's the Fritos, but what are they? They're like a sweet barbecue Frito.
Oh yeah, they're the sweet barbecue twist.
Yeah,
things.
Yeah. Not
I
just
love
that,
those.
not just those. That flavor doesn't exist here. Like
That's
of
good
anything.
stuff.
Like you can't find anything that's remotely like that. Period in Canada. And so, like, if I have friends that come up, that's my crack. That and some Diet Pibb or Pibb Extra, man. But yeah, that was my go-to snack to sneak into movies, was a Diet Mountain Dew or a Diet Orange Crush. And you get to pretend that you're having something sweet, even though it's sugar-free.
Sure.
So seeing those commercials for and all the food that they were showing in that AGFA Horror Trailer Show, when they showed like the concessions food, I was like, the food there looks a lot better than the concessions food I remember having. So it must have been a lot better in the 50s and 60s.
Yeah, maybe. I remember seeing that one ad that had like a hot dog, and there were like people in costumes, and the hot dog was like glowing green, and I'm like, holy crap, that doesn't look healthy at all.
Or the fact that they showed the concessions clerk grilling up hamburgers fresh.
Oh my god, yeah, that would be amazing.
And not only that, they weren't frozen patties. It looked like they were forming the patties themselves and then making hamburgers for people at the drive-in. I'm thinking, that's just like your friend making a cookout. Like, it looked way better than anything now. And again, and back then, even if you converted like would have been what, like 30 cents, 40 cents, 50 cents for a ticket, you start adding it up, it's like, it doesn't make sense how they could sustain that. But I guess food and everything was just a lot cheaper back then.
Yeah, here's I remember vaguely. I am old enough to remember drive-throughs. Drive-ins. I'm sorry, drive-in theaters. And I remember the one that was by our house that I ended up seeing when I was like 2.5, that I saw the Star Trek The Motion Picture. But it was later on that I remember this, that they charged you could buy a ticket that wasn't the movie ticket, but it gave you the right to bring in hot dogs, hamburger buns, whatever food you wanted to bring in, and you could use the grills that they provided inside the drive-in.
Oh, that's neat.
Like you'd bring your own charcoal and all that, but yeah, you'd grill out and have a full cookout picnic with the drive-in. And thinking about that now, man, that would be awesome to go see movies like that today.
Well, I just looked up. There's a couple that still exist in Ontario, at least. The Mustang Drive-In is outside of Guelph, where Mike lives. I've always wanted to go. I had friends that went, and I'm just going to see what it says. They're opening on the 26th, so I'm assuming, even though movie theaters are still technically closed here, I think the drive-in is going to be unaffected because you're driving with your own car, right? So
yeah.
It says here admission prices. General admission is $15. Kids 6 to 12, $5. 5 years and younger free, cash only. It says. I know they used to do a thing where it was a triple movie or 4 movies back to back to back, and it was a carload for $30. So I remember that was the big thing when I was in high school, and even up until recently, you could do that. So it would be, I think it was 1 new release movie, and then it would be 3 that had maybe just left theaters. And it would do like dusk to dawn, so you'd watch the whole night. So you get a group of maybe 4 or 5 people together. You split $30 between you, and you get to see 4 movies. So I want to see what they have food or snack wise. Okay, they don't have the prices, but it's popcorn, caramel corn, no cheeseburger, hot dogs, poutine because it's Canada.
Well, there's nothing wrong with poutine.
Okay, so, onion rings and your slushies, your standard sort of stuff there. So good. Maybe I'll eventually get to go to one of them. But yeah, like it's funny that it still exists, but it's a lot less. My parents told me that the drive-in, like they lived in Toronto area, so it was like they're like, oh, there's like 4 or 5 of them they used to just drive to and go to, and that was like standard. That was where anybody over the age of 16 and under the age of 30 went, unless you had kids. Then you brought your kids along, and it was a way for like. My dad was one of 7 kids, so they would all 5 or 6 of them at a time would pile into the station wagon, and that was a way, like, for $5, my grandpa could get a double feature in for all the kids.
Yeah.
So
but that's the whole A movie, B movie thing that I generally talk about in Earth versus Soup, where you have 2 different movies being shown back to back that are usually paired. One's better than the other.
Yeah,
and you get a
one
double
is the
feature.
one is the one that's advertised. One they make for dirt cheap just to pair it, and that's why I noticed that a lot of those movies show up in those like Mill Creek box sets where it's like 50 movies, and it's
I absolutely love those box sets.
Yeah, and then I'll look and I'll be like, why is the movie like 58 minutes or 69 minutes long? It's because it was part of a double feature. Yep. So you get a regular movie that would have been 80 minutes long or 90 minutes long, then you get a 5 or 10 minute intermission, and then you get that, and then that fills up your 3-hour time slot.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, this AGFA thing, like I said, I saw a few of these movies. I've seen some of them before, and I recognize like Nightmare Weekend, which was one of the first trailers that they showed, and while I've seen it, I haven't seen it in a long time, and I was absolutely shocked about how much skin they showed in that trailer.
Well, and they're clearly trailers that would have been, like, they're not trailers you would have seen on TV. They're trailers, not even, in the middle of the night. They're trailers that you would have had to have been going to an R-rated movie to see.
I mean, there's full frontal female nudity in that first trailer.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, whoa, this is a trailer? Really? Like... Maybe, yeah, like, wow, I don't know. That threw me off.
I checked, they're not European trailers either.
No, they're American and Canadian.
So they would have been ones that had to have been from the drive-in or from like a art house, grindhouse type theater that you would have gone for like midnight movies. The kind of thing where the trailer would have only shown probably at midnight.
Yeah.
So there's it's hard to describe all the movies that were in there. Just that there's a lot that, if you've seen the Robert Rodriguez Tarantino movie Grindhouse, where they made all those fake trailers for it.
Oh God, I love those fake trailers too.
Yes. See that I saw that double feature. Or is it a double feature?
Yeah,
or
it is a double feature.
Yeah, I guess it is. Yeah, Planet Terror,
Death Proof, and
Planet Terror.
Yeah, Planet Terror, yeah.
So I saw that opened up, I think it was Easter weekend, and I got to go in the morning to see it at like a 10 a.m. showing, and then my family picked me up to go visit the rest of the family for the weekend. And I was there with like 3 other people. I knew it was going to bomb because it's not the kind of movie that you release on Easter weekend.
Yeah.
But we went there, and I sat down, and they had all the fake trailers, and they had the same thing with the fake concessions advertisements or retro ones. They even had, for the Canadian screening, they showed a fan-made trailer that ended up being made into a real movie later on, which was Hobo with a Shotgun.
Yeah, which actually has one of the guys from Trailer Park Boys, doesn't it?
Yep. But yeah, and Rutger Hauer starred in the full feature-length film they ended up making out of it. But that was part of a contest that they ran in Canada. Submit your fake trailers, and the best one Robert Rodriguez would put with the Canadian screening. So that opened with that. So we saw those fake, like, they didn't, the best part was, for that opening weekend, they didn't show any other trailers.
Wow.
So for that Friday opening day, the Good Friday, it was completely just that experience.
Wow.
So they even came in and said that, like, before it started, they said, by the way, the trailers will be starting, but you'll want to watch. That's what the ticket salesman says. You're going to want to watch because we're not showing any promotional trailers for other films. And then just gave a wink, and I was like, okay. I sat down, and it was, all those werewolf women of the SS and all that sort of stuff.
Werewolf women of the SS, I almost pissed myself in the theater laughing so hard.
Oh, with Fu Manchu and
oh God, Nicolas Cage as Fu Manchu, and he's everything about that movie is something that I thought was hilarious. I don't know why.
Well, and even like what was it? Was it called Don't? Where it was like the British one, don't go into the house or the basement or anything.
Yeah.
That there's a lot of those kind of trailers in this AGFA collection. Even
yes.
like it's not like they intentionally aged it. This is what they look like. I would say a good sizable, maybe 30 or 40% of them are similar to what was it, the Thanksgiving trailer.
Yeah, there's a lot of horror. There's a lot of kind of slasher movie type trailers.
Some that are really lazy, some that seem a little more creative.
Yeah, I wrote down like Witchcraft 1970 seems fantastic.
That seems way over the top.
Way over the top, because it's just way over the top. Perhaps the most shocking, the hippie commune in California.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And it was not done tongue in cheek. They were trying to be serious.
Yeah, exactly. Massage Parlor Murders looked
that
amazing.
One,
what's my other one?
A lot of these are probably in the public domain, so we'll have to track them down.
The Velvet Vampire. That looked really good. For whatever reason, I just said this looks a lot of fun. I want to watch this.
The only trailer that seemed out of place was Hobgoblins.
Yeah, even though that's a movie I swear I've seen, but I remember nothing about. It just, everything about it seems familiar.
I think it's because they've had bits and pieces of that, I guess, an internet ephemera spread around. It also is so similar to was it Troll and Troll 2 and Gremlins? In fact, they're hobgoblins, but they refer to them in the trailer as gremlins.
Yeah.
So there was that one. I would say, what else was it that sort of stood out? There were a couple foreign films, not many, but there was some, like, it looked like Italian or Spanish films that they dubbed over with English on it. But yeah, it's just sort of, if you like those collections that have come out, I think Mill Creek and other people have put out before, where it's like 1,000 retro commercials, or if you go onto YouTube, you'll have entire channels that sometimes show Saturday morning blocks from the 70s and 80s that people taped to beta and VHS, and they're commercials and all, and they just uploaded them, and they're not taken down because the quality is so low that the copyright holders aren't coming after it. So, or even on the Internet Archive, people will put up entire, it's like, here's what aired Thursday night on CBS in 1977. You'll see that. It's that sort of thing. It's the kind of thing too where you could almost, it's not something you're going to watch over and over and over again, but it is something that's worth checking out if you've got a bunch of friends that, maybe you can try to see if you've seen how many of them. I saw maybe one or two. Was it? Did they? I can't remember. Did they show Bloodsucking Freaks on there?
I don't have that written down. I've seen. I've seen.
Oh no, it was
these.
Carnival of Blood. I've seen.
Yeah, I've seen Carnival of Blood.
And I've seen. It was Carnival of Blood, and there was one more, I think.
I've seen Robot versus Aztec Mummy. Carnival of Blood. I've seen Nightmare Weekend.
That was the one I've seen. Nightmare Weekend.
And I want to see, and Hobgoblins is I don't know, because everything about it seems familiar.
I think it's one of those things we probably saw it in, like, either renting a bunch of tapes at once when you were kids, or it was just on TV and you might have flipped through.
Yeah.
Because it was the only 80s one that was really out of place. Because there were other 80s films, but it was the only one that felt like almost, I don't know, higher budget, or it had a different look to it.
It was a cleaner trailer.
Yeah,
is what it was.
It looked like the trailer had been well preserved, and there were a few other late 70s and early 80s flicks in there that looked super interesting, that had like really creative effects, and I might have to go back and make a list of things we should watch.
Well, Hobgoblins is available from Vinegar Syndrome.
Oh yeah, so I'll have to maybe look into that. They included some extra features on there as well. So there is. They call it a bonus movie, but it's a whole other like 70-80 minute thing, which is the AGFA Horror Trailer Show Video Rage, they called it. And it was a full-length mixtape, they called it, of all the shot-on-video, direct-to-video trailers from they call it from the AGFA Video Dungeon. That, you should probably give it a watch. In there, it's a lot of, obviously even lower budget or no budget films, but some of the effects were even more creative. Some of the acting is hilarious, and you watch like Red Letter Media stuff, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like there's some stuff in there that they haven't touched yet. I sincerely hope they get their hands on this release so they can watch those trailers and then go, we have to search through this, because I wouldn't be surprised if it's not even in their collection, a lot of these ones that they had in there. And I mentioned to you off air that there's about 4 or 5 trailers for 2 different, it appears to be Nigerian horror films. And it is like, I knew that there was an entire industry over there where they just made rip-offs of American blockbusters. Like there's like Nigerian Titanic, and they just almost redo it shot for shot, but with whatever actors they have locally, whatever effects they can do in camera or through a basic video editor. Well, they have an entire horror genre that seems to be centered around religious themes. It's like the devil's inside the person, and it's just, they'll have a person narrating, just yelling the name over and over and over again. So they'll say the name like 30 times during a 90-second trailer, so that you get that stuck in your head. And then they'll say where to order it from and what company it is, and everything involved sounds like a money laundering scheme.
But at least that's good marketing. Like, you're not going to forget that.
No,
you're not
exactly.
That movie name.
Yeah. So I thought that was cool. And then there's some 80s and 90s. There might have been one I saw in there. I'm just not 100% sure, but it might be my brain playing tricks that there's maybe a few trailers in there for films that Red Letter Media covered themselves, and that's why I'm thinking that I've seen it.
Usually, if the Red Letter Media covers something and it actually looks like it's a lot of fun, even if it's a garbage movie, I'll end up somehow finding it or buying it. Like the Len Kaczynski films are, low budget modern action films, and they've covered a couple of his films on the channel and even had him on as a guest. And those films are fantastic to watch.
Well,
those are grindhousey and
Well, and with them, like, I think if you look at them at face value, people would think that Red Letter Media is just completely, tearing apart people and breaking them down. But you can see that there's a love for the crap, the weird, the strange.
Oh yeah.
So like they wouldn't be having the directors and creators come on if they were just out to troll their videos. So
and Len Kaczynski donated time to come and be a part of one of the movies that they made, one of their low budget movies. Like, it's clear that even though they kind of tore into his films, they did it with love, and he loves them back. I'm actually friends with Len Kaczynski on Facebook. Like, the guy's really cool, and he's out of Pennsylvania, like Erie, Pennsylvania, so just right across the lake from you guys.
Oh wow, yeah. I might have waved at him at one point when I was on vacation. But yeah, so that's pretty much it for the AGFA Horror Trailer Show. Good if you're into this weird stuff. And also, again, if you want to, it's almost like make a checklist of all the movies you want to see from watching it.
I did. Yeah, it's worth watching, folks.
Moving on, we got a release, probably the first time I've had a 3D release to cover. And I watched 2 versions of this film. This is Silent Madness. Vinegar Syndrome released this, and I'll say that there's a boxed set that's it's a 2-disc set. The one disc has the 2D version, or flat as they call it, which would be how most of us watch films. On that same disc, there's the Anaglyph 3D version. If you don't know Anaglyph, that's the red blue, the old school 3D glasses that you think of from like the 50s, 60s, or I guess not recently anymore, but was it Third Rock from the Sun had episodes that were in 3D, and they used to get 3D glasses to watch for that. And then on a second disc, there is a digital 3D that requires a 3D TV, 3D player, and the standard glasses you get when you go to the movie theaters.
Yeah. Well, I knew I had 3D glasses somewhere around the house, but I couldn't find them. It figures, like the one time I need 3D glasses.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it comes with 2 paper ones inside of the box, which is cool. So I ended up watching the Anaglyph version and then the standard flat version, because even with all my fancy TV stuff, digital 3D, not very many TVs support it. My brother has an LG that I think does or did, or one of his TVs did at one point. You can futz around with it and make it work, but on a computer, the problem is most Blu-ray drives for computers don't support reading 3D discs either properly. So it's cool that it's there for the collector, because if you're somebody collecting 3D horror films, you probably are spending the money to get a TV that does that.
Yeah,
and they include every version, which is good. That would be the pristine version to watch, where they've remastered it and synced it up for each eye. Whereas the anaglyph version is, if it tints everything red and blue, and you get that sort of stereoscopic image that it's a simple technology, but it still works. Not nearly as good as the digital 3D, but it still does. And this is a film from 1984. It weirdly seems like it was, in my mind, it feels like it was created later than that.
I don't know. It feels very mid 80s to me. But that's just because it feels a little more dreamy. And there's a couple reasons for that. Like, I watched the 2D flat version, okay? Because I could not find my 3D glasses, and I don't have a 3D TV. But it's because half the scenes, or at least all the scenes that were filmed for 3D, are slightly blurry.
Yeah, it feels like they took those, because it would have been, film for 3D would have been what? Would it have been 2 reels back then projecting, or would it have been? It
would have had to have been at least 2 lenses.
Yeah. So when watching it in the anaglyph version, it's a lot sharper. So it's clear that they, even though the depth isn't going to be as deep as a true 3D film, and I'm going to have to take this over to my brother's place and watch it in real 3D. But the scenes that they made, it's your standard 80s. I guess psychopath goes on a murdering spree, but it's a little different.
Yeah, it's slightly weird, and I think it's another reason why it screamed mid 80s rather than late 80s to me is the clothes in it. Like, I don't know, most slasher films from the 80s feel like they were, all the kids are from like the 70s. That's what it feels like to me. But this, it actually felt like the college girls were actually from the 80s. Their clothes were brightly colored. They weren't like over the top brightly colored, but they were 19, 20-year-old girls from 1984, and it worked. I think the lighting in this is also really well done. Like the color palette that they use for different things.
And that's probably to do with them realizing that they have to use a specific color palette, or it has to pop enough that when they make it into the red blue, that you can still sort of make out what's happening. The basic premise is there's a glitch in a computer system. I'm going to say glitch in quotes, that at an asylum that leads to them accidentally releasing. There's a patient relief program. I guess they're trying to cut their budget, so they're releasing non-violent offenders from the, I guess, mental asylum, as they referred to it.
I said Reagan era budget cuts for mental health are really taking its toll here.
And we're going to be letting out non-violent people, and they didn't say where they were going to go, so it sounded like they were just going to make them homeless. But that's because it's an 80s film and 80s time. But instead of releasing one person, they had the names backwards, first and last sort of thing, and they ended up releasing a super violent mass murderer who is clearly not ready to be on his own. The main character is a doctor. She works at the asylum. She also, in a B plot, uncovers that they're doing experiments on the mentally handicapped.
Yes. And that's like a B plot that I thought was completely unresolved, but it might have actually been far more interesting than the A plot.
Yes. The only reason that they have for her to even uncover this is her colleagues don't like that she's ratting on them. And they end up sending these equally psychopathic and sadistic orderlies to go kidnap her and then make her disappear by putting her into the program where they experiment on her. That's the goal, I guess.
Yeah, and then they just kind of say, no, we'll just kill her and rape her.
Well,
and maybe not in that order, but we're gonna knock her out, rape her, then kill her.
Yeah, and it devolves pretty quickly after they send
crap.
her they send them after her, and the one psychopath orderly is in the back of the van, and he's got his needle, and he's like, I'm gonna stick it in her, and I'm gonna twist, and then it was very graphically sexual, violent.
Yeah.
Like surprising so. How much
it was pretty weird, but like, oh yeah, just keep going with the plot. Keep going with the plot.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's the B plot, is they're coming to get her for whatever reason. She has contacted the only person that believes her that was willing to listen to her initially about escaped mental patients is a journalist for the newspaper, and they have a computer, by the way. So it's fancy.
Yes, they do. Yeah, they're high tech. They're fancy. And he seems like actually a pretty cool character in this. Like, he's not overtly hitting on her. He just seems like a really nice guy. I mean, he might be hitting on her a little bit but
not what you would expect from a mid-'80s film.
Yeah, exactly. He's just kind of like a regular guy who
he never takes over, never takes command, never tells her what's best for her or anything. She's still the lead.
Yeah.
And then we sort of pivot from her story to what's happened to the escaped psychopath, and he starts smashing people in with hatchets.
Yeah, he just kind of he kills people randomly. And when I say randomly, he just uses whatever's around to kill people.
A hammer, a hatchet, and it's all excuses to use the 3D effects, right? Where everything's moving really fast and then it's really slow as a knife goes towards you. Or there was a hand when he threw the hatchet.
Yeah, it stopped.
It stopped and switched to being a hand-drawn painting of a hatchet. Because I guess they couldn't, in their budget, figure out how to do it on strings to hold it in place as it came towards you. So they just drew it coming towards you, and I laughed out loud at it because it was that noticeable. When you watch it in 3D, it's not as bad. Because
it looks bad in 2D.
So he also kills... Okay, so eventually he kills a couple people randomly, and then he makes his way to this sorority house, which seems to be built on top of like the Paris sewer catacombs. Like, I've never seen anything that much.
I actually sent when we were talking offline, we were talking on Facebook Messenger, and I was like, oh my god, this place is just like Michigan State University, because we actually have tunnels like that under the university that I work at. And it's the same university where all those people back in the 70s were playing Dungeons and Dragons down in the steam tunnels and getting themselves killed. And yeah, there's tunnels. There's like work tunnels, more than just the steam tunnels. There's like maintenance shafts and things like that underneath our university. So that part, it actually didn't bother me. I'm like, oh wow, they're filming here in Lansing.
Oh, see, and me watching it, I was like, there's no such place why would that be underneath a dormitory? And it's like,
and it is.
It turns out, yeah,
it is. I've been in like the top level underneath my building that I work in. I've been in it once, and it was only for a few minutes because maintenance had opened it up, and I wanted to go down there and look at it, and then I had to skedaddle really fast. And then I was, when I was working in one of the dorms, I won't say which one, I got into, I had to take something down into storage, and the storage was below the basement level linked to the steam tunnels and maintenance tunnels.
Wow.
And it was, there were old fallout shelters down there. And I wish I could have spent hours just, exploring and seeing all the old civil defense stuff that was just, cobwebbed and sitting down there for no good reason. But yeah, there are places like this.
So I stand corrected. So it is realistic, and he's found his way into what appears to be an electrical cross boiler room.
Yeah.
Although I don't...
It's a maintenance room. It's like a maintenance area.
I was going to say, it might be bad form, but generally you'd want your highly conductive electrical open wires away from where the boiler steam comes out, but that's just me.
Yeah.
So he's found his way in there, and he's going to slowly pick off the sorority girls one by one. You are introduced to, I guess, the school marm. she's in charge of the
Yes.
the sorority mother. I couldn't pinpoint her age because things didn't add up later on.
But you know who she is, right?
I recognized her.
She's the older woman. She's the old woman that gives Daniel Jackson and Stargate all the information in the movie.
Oh, right.
That's
what
that
it was.
actress. That's
That's
actress.
why, because it was 10 years earlier, so she looked a little younger. That's why. Okay.
Yeah, her name's Vivica Lindfors. Yeah. That's that same actress. I recognized her right away, but I'm like, oh, that's that Stargate actress from the movie. Oh,
Okay,
but I didn't know her name.
That makes sense because the movie's 94, I think, right? So, so it would have been 10 years later. But yeah, so she's introduced as vaguely Germanic or some sort of. It sounded like a German accent, but then every once in a while it switched to being some other European accent.
It's because she's Swedish. The actress is Swedish, and that's probably what it is.
Okay, so she agrees to, I guess, talk with the main doctor who's sort of investigating where the crazed killer could have gone, because at one point he apparently killed a bunch of people at that school.
Yes.
And it's hinted at and foreshadowed that she knows him because she's looking at old pictures. And he tells a story about how he was this was 17 years earlier. He was a custodian at the school, and he one day decided to be a bit of a peeping Tom and watched a bunch of girls doing initiations where they were spanking each other and then randomly getting topless because 80s.
Yeah. And that was not a very sexy scene. That was just like a comfortable scene. It was
they're all in the gross maintenance room, and they're all like, it's weird seeing pristinely clean clothes on all these people in this like dreary, damp room.
Yeah,
and they notice him there, and then they decide we're going to play a prank on him. They tied him down, gave him some spanks, and that made him go crazy, and he killed them all.
Well, they were also like sexually teasing him. He ends up killing them all. At least in the story, yeah.
Was it a nail gun?
That's okay. Now we can have a talk about that.
This is where I got confused because I'm like, they're longer than nails, but it looked like a nail gun or a harpoon.
I think it's supposed to be a nail gun, but it's firing like railroad spikes.
Yeah,
they're way bigger than regular nails.
They were like the thickness and length of a dart.
Yeah, I thought it looked like pencils. That's what it looked like. It was firing pencils.
It probably was.
Yeah, and they
for
just
the sake of the
painted
movie.
them silver.
Yeah. So then he was apparently locked up for 17 years and yada yada. Some of the deaths are pretty creative. And the one girl he kills her while she's the one that's working out on the equipment, and like she dies and she puts her hands backwards so that her blood can drip towards the camera in 3D.
Yeah, and then there's like the girl that he puts in like the vice and squeezes her head until blood sprays everywhere.
Yeah,
that's pretty good. Yeah, no, the girl that's like hanging upside down on the exercise equipment, he ties like bricks to a jump rope and then ties the jump rope to her neck and then throws the bricks out. You
never get to see what happened to her though. She's the only death they didn't show.
They don't want to show somebody's neck broke or something.
Well,
like
I have a feeling that like they didn't go so over the top as to like decapitate her, and I get the feeling that there is a quick reaction shot of her being hung from it, and they probably cut it so that they wouldn't get the NC-17 rating.
Yeah, probably,
because they pushed a lot of the boundaries here pretty close to the edge of what you could do in 1984 for a regular R-rated film.
Oh, for sure. And that's also the scene where we get another cameo from Dragon Lair, the video game.
Yes, yeah, and it was like fully on display. They must have. I wonder if it was a paid promotional spot for it.
I remember that game, and I remember hating that game because I couldn't do anything.
Well, she does have a decent line there. Oh, yeah. Don't die, and then she she gets slashed.
Yep.
And it just seemed odd that like they had one arcade game in this sorority house, and it's the most expensive arcade game ever produced at that time. Like those machines were like $12,000.
Yeah.
So
That's crazy.
they happen to have a Laserdisc based arcade game, but I guess that's the nerd in me talking. So clearly somebody on the staff was a big fan of the game.
Oh yeah, of course.
So death. The reporter friend comes to try to help. He gets knocked incapacitated. Has a really cool shot where his hands are tied behind his back. He comes to help and is hiding the fact that he's reloaded the gun.
Yeah, and he fires the gun weirdly.
Yeah. He turns and tries to fire it from the hip, but from behind. I've never seen that done in a movie before.
Yeah, and obviously it doesn't work, but that's really cool that he tried it and they showed it.
They made it so that he was so desperate he was going to willing to do anything. He knew he was left wide open, but did it anyway to help.
Yeah, that was really cool.
And they end up scuffling more, and it's revealed that he is the son of the sorority mom.
Yeah.
And she's like, he didn't know any better. It's the whole Jason sort of thing. Except then she grabs what is a big piece of glass and slashes his neck open.
Because
right through.
Isn't it like revealed that she's the one that killed everybody?
Well, they don't reveal that. They show at the end that they say, oh, she killed all those teenagers.
Yeah.
So it's hinted that he killed one and she killed the rest.
Yeah. It's a little unclear to me exactly.
Or that he attacked them, they didn't die, and that she might have been the one that killed them all.
Yeah, because she likes calling them all sluts and whores, and she really goes off on these poor girls. For just doing like basic kind of a young girl just having fun.
They were dancing, and then she's like, oh, maybe we'll show them a little more, and she like the girl goes to lift her top just to joke with her friends, and she's still wearing her bra, but she comes in and she's like, you're a slut.
You whore. Yeah. Oh my God. That's whoa. Holy crap.
Yeah.
And
trigger words here.
I'm sorry. I just overreacted. I'm sorry. And it's like, no, that's not how this works.
There's a reason we don't have a 60 or 70-year-old lady that is living in a house that looks like she's decorated it from like 150 years ago in charge of a modern college sorority. Yeah. But still, it ends on a funny note too. Like the doctor, everything's happy. The guy is dead. She's arrested. The doctors that the doctors that were trying to get her killed are arrested. Which we should mention though.
One guy gets his head drilled.
I was going to say, we almost forgot the two orderlies that come to attack her that are going to very clearly rape her. Like they make that intention very clear. One of them seems indifferent and the other one is very keen on it. Yeah. They're getting attacked, and at the same time the killer eventually comes in, the maniac, and they end up having a squabble three-way. But the one guy that's trying to assault her dies in the most hilariously stupid way possible, in that his friend who's there, he's like, I can't see anything, and he's like, he flips a light switch on and he's like, I wonder what this does, and he flips a switch which turns a drill press on and drills directly into his friend's head, burrowing a hole about the size of a golf ball into his head.
And it saved her from being raped. Like, okay, well, at least that happened. I don't have to see this assault happen.
And they're cattle prodding each other, and he gets electrocuted at one point with sparks, and just it's a little over the top.
It's the one guy at the beginning of the film laughs like freaking Ming the Merciless, the one of the orderlies. I mean, it's these are not normal characters. These are over the top caricatures, and that's what makes them a little funny, even though they're clearly evil and repugnant human beings.
And it just ends like it has one of the weirdest. Like it ended, and I gave the what the fuck hands. Because the doctor is about to leave. She's going to go home in her sports car that she seems to have.
It's an old British like Morgan or something.
And
something like that.
And her new friend, the reporter man, is like, he's like, I'm gonna go back to work or something. I got a story to write, and he's like, yeah, right. And he kicks his feet up in the car, which he clearly doesn't fit into. He wouldn't even get his legs in there. He's too tall.
Yeah, it's a very small. It's a very
like
small
like an MG or something, right?
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
and it kicks his legs up, and then she's like, "Ha ha!" And then it freeze frames.
Yeah, exactly. It's like that's the ending, really. Yeah, really.
That's it. Wait, what? Happy
least-
like sitcom ending?
At least it didn't show, like, it didn't freeze frame on them like kissing and saying, "Oh God, I love you," or something like that. Like, "Oh, we've gone through this horrible experience. Now we're in love." At least they didn't do that.
No, it just ended with they're going to go off together, maybe to have a drink or something.
Yeah, like it's a very ending.
And I sat there with my hands up, going, "What?"
Yeah, there should have been like, I don't know. This is an 80s slasher film. Okay, I don't expect a lot from it, and what I expect is schlock. And I expected like one of the orderlies to like still be alive and become the killer, for the next movie.
It could have ended with them going away and then like having the police officer going down a list of things and being like, "Well, we've got him, and then looking like, because she didn't know most of the patients, right? She was sort of new there. Yeah. They could have gone down the list and then gone, "Wait a minute, that's not John so and so," and that have him be another escaped mental patient.
Yeah,
that they were actually chasing the wrong guy, and there's another crazed guy still out.
Or now that the two doctors are arrested that have been in charge of this crazy MK Ultra experiment that is never resolved at the insane asylum, maybe all of these people become like horrible mutant killers. Or
it could have ended with like they shut down that wing of the university, but in reality they had another office where there's more people being worked on.
Yeah, exactly. Like, oh, this leads into Project Metal Beast DNA Overload, where they're putting werewolf DNA in these people.
Exactly. But overall, I was surprised. It was pretty decent, and for a package where they include all those features, it's not the kind of movie you'd think would get the treatment of like the double disc 3 version treatment.
Yeah. So I don't know. I enjoyed it.
I'd watch it again.
Yeah.
With friends, especially if I could watch it with full 3D. If everybody had 3D glasses on, I think everybody had a pretty good time with it.
Oh, yeah. I think that would be a lot of fun with 3D glasses, for sure.
And then I guess our final film is another silent film, but not silent as in not talking. Silent Running.
Yes, Silent Running from 1972. And I have things to say about this movie.
I'll give the rundown. Arrow Video got a remastered copy. I know there was a remastered version in England for a while. Was Masters of Cinema or something released it? Well, Arrow put out the US release. It's rated G, interestingly enough. Literally G.
That's surprising. It's
not PG, surprising. Rated G.
Yeah. I would assume that it was rated PG because there are people that are killed in this.
Well, and there's blood, and there's, but I don't think there's really too much language.
No.
It might also be the topics and everything involved, but it's had the full 4K remaster thing, even though it's on not standard, but like regular 1080p. It's a release that has the original track remastered. It even has an isolated music track if you just wanted to watch it with the music on, because there's not a whole ton of dialogue in this entire film. It's 90 minutes long. I would say 50% of it doesn't have talking.
Yeah, and honestly, I would say that the dialogue is the weakest part of the film. Yes.
So the basic premise is this was a passion project from the director Douglas Trumbull. You may not know the name because he only ever really made, I think, 2 or 3 Hollywood pictures. One of them being this, one of them being Brain Scan in the 80s with an early starring feature for Christopher Walken. I remember seeing that as a kid. But the writers for this is Michael Cimino, who was the mastermind behind The Deer Hunter and won, the bazillion awards. The final script was doctored up and edited by Stephen Bacco, who is that not the person from like New York Undercover?
Maybe, but I think this director is more known for other things than being a director.
Yes, I'll get to that. So the writing, we can probably place blame on Stephen Bacco, who's NYPD Blue. That's what he made.
Okay,
and I think Hill Street Blues. So known for police dramas mostly, but this director, he's known mostly for innovating tech.
Yes.
Basically the inventor of the 4D ride, where you sit in a little thing, and you know, if you've ever gone to a state fair or any science center, and you'd get into a enclosed screening room where the seats move, and it feels like you're part of the ride.
Yeah.
But it's a screen. He's the guy that invented that, and he had patents for it. We're talking 10 years before anybody else did, and it's probably most known now for doing the Back to the Future was it Universal Studios experience.
Okay.
As well as pioneering a bunch of VR tech back in the day.
But I mean, he did visual effects.
Oh yeah.
For some of the most amazingly visual, beautiful movies I can name.
Yes, and the team that he assembled to make this film ended up going on to make their next big project was the Star Trek the motion picture, which, say what you will about the running time on it, had some of the best practical effects and optical effects probably done on
Close
film.
Encounters of the Third Kind.
Yep, Close Encounters. The miniatures and costume design and robot design person from this film ended up making Star Wars.
Yeah, and he did Blade Runner. Special
Yes.
photographic effects supervisor for Blade Runner. I mean,
it's a who's who of like, this director gathered a lot of people that were just leaving college or just getting their first big break, or maybe they had studied under effects people like Harryhausen and all that, but they're just getting their first chance to make a film on their own. And it was at a time when it was Universal or Paramount that originally produced it, where they're like, they saw, I think it was Easy Rider came out and made like $1 bazillion. You know, it cost like a couple $100,000 and then ended up making like 70 million. And they went, well, we can do that. So they greenlit, I think it was 5 or 6 movies, they said, that were $1 million a piece. And they said, we want to do one in every type of genre. And we're going to pick somebody who's an up-and-comer, who might be a technical marvel that wants to really show what he can do. And we're going to give you final cut. We're not going to do any of the old studio tricks, and you can do whatever you want. And it's probably due in part to the success of 2001: A Space Odyssey as well at the time. Because you can see the influence here. Now,
when I watched this, I saw the influence that it had on later projects more than I saw the influence of 2001.
The influence, what I'm referring to, is just in giving the director final cut.
Yeah.
Do whatever you want. We're not going to give you any pointers at all. They gave 0 notes on the film.
Just make what you want to make.
$1 million, can't go over budget. Make what you want to make. Take as long as you need to take.
Yeah.
And that's something you just don't see. The only thing that's close to that now is maybe how Netflix has handled some of their projects. But it's just not. It's something that only existed for that brief period of time from 1969 to about 1981.
Yeah.
And after that, it became more and more important that these films become blockbusters. So that's the basic background on the production of the film. They did get some. There was a feature on here talking about the music and how. Personally, I didn't care. It didn't speak to me. How the music was so important. It felt a bit hippie-ish. It was like
it's hippie-ish, but it worked for what the movie was.
But the story is Bruce Dern, who I think this was his first major starring role. Prior to this, he'd been in a lot of bit parts here and there. He is a caretaker on a Ark ship, I guess I think they refer to it as an Ark ship at one point.
Yeah.
Where on Earth we've destroyed, from all of our wars and crap, we've destroyed all of the forests and most of the most nature. A lot of I guess animals are gone. The forests and plants are gone.
They've paved the Earth basically. There's nothing left. Everyone's eating synthetic food.
But we're at a point now where apparently there's no war. Everybody has a job. There's no war, and they're able to use like replicator technology to create whatever food they need from basic elements. And he's on a ship that was part of a project to perhaps reseed the Earth with plant life once they had these bustling forests and landscapes thrive on these giant dome ships. And everybody he works with views it as just a dumb job they're getting paid to do. And it's a 5-year mission. And they're like, we're going to go home. We're going to get drunk and yada, yada. We don't give a crap. They drive over the plants with their cars. They don't give a crap about the rabbits or birds or anything else that are on the dome ships. And he is an old school hippie / eventual eco-terrorist. And you hear bits and pieces of what it's like on Earth. And to be honest, it sounds fine. The only thing missing is that we've devastated our natural beauty of the planet. And he is somebody who wants to restore that. And they're given the orders partway into the movie to jettison the plants and destroy them. I don't know why they say destroy them.
Yeah, they're okay. So to me, the movie fell apart like immediately upon that. There's no reason to give that order to destroy them. They could have just jettisoned them and had these things sit in solar orbit and continue the droids to maintain them.
I kept waiting to hear one of two things. One, to turn out that this is actually they were intercepting messages that were actually from an alien race trying to basically fuck with us.
Yeah.
Or two, that what we didn't know is in the 5 years they were up there had been a breakdown in society and there was a war going on. And one side was trying to trick the other into destroying what plant life they had left to devastate the U.S.'s potential for growing food.
Yeah.
And we didn't get that.
Yeah, there's nothing. It's literally, hey guys, this is too much of a bother now. Let's destroy all the plants and just come on back. Like there's why would you do that?
Yeah, they're like, there's no budget anymore. We're canceling the project. We don't need it.
What? But I mean, why? Like, these are like supposedly the last of the animals and the last of the plants. Like, why would I? It's so baffling, and it's never given any kind of explanation.
And the crazy thing is, this movie is almost universally liked by critics. Maybe we're seeing it out of time. Maybe when it came out, maybe the message was much more important. But they've made a few critical mistakes in making it sound like the Earth is already fine. Yes, they don't have the plants and all that, but they make mention everybody has food. It doesn't.
There's no poverty.
There's no poverty. There's no hunger. The food doesn't taste as good, they admit. But everybody has food. There's no poverty. Everybody has a job. There's no war. So,
and there seems to be a bustling space program.
Yes, and his only argument is there's no beauty and nobody cares. Everybody's become lethargic is his argument.
And okay, for an early 70s hippie-ish film, okay, fair enough. I guess that's an okay message, but it doesn't really have any depth. And so they get the order to like start jettisoning the domes and nuking them, and they do. Like no one really bats an eye except for the main character, right?
Yeah. And
what does the main character do? He murders the crew.
Yeah. He either sabotages or has the other part of the crew blow up with one of the domes by ejecting them early.
Yeah, and then they explode. And it's like, okay, so who am I supposed to feel sympathy here for?
Well, and then he ends up killing the only other guy on his ship because they were supposed to split up and do each dome. Yeah. And he kills his crewmate with a shovel. And he does feel guilt initially.
Yeah, he does.
He you can see the look on his face as he's like, I've made a terrible mistake. I shouldn't have done this.
Yeah, and he's all teary and he's like,
I shouldn't have done this. But then he doubles down and he's like, well, no. And in the process of this, he cut himself. He starts reprogramming the robots, which is kind of cool that they're using like late 1960s, early 1970s, like RAM chips, lack of a better term, that sort of slot into their brains. And he figures out a way to reprogram them from being maintenance droids, from like picking up the trash and all that sort of stuff. He trains them on how to actually caretake, also trains them on how to do surgery on him to fix his leg.
And how to play cards.
I thought it was pretty cool, the pool table, the thing that they had set up.
Yeah.
And the set decoration is second to none. in this movie.
Oh, yeah. The sets, but they filmed on an aircraft carrier.
Yeah, and then they just sort of they tried to make parts of it look like space stuff, and they even, I think, named it after the aircraft
Valley
carrier
Forge.
too.
USS Valley Forge.
And it was, but it was the was it American Airlines Space Freight, I think was the name of the company. And they even had like the stickers on the side. Everything looked as if it was a lived-in world. This wasn't, this was not near future, but they sort of hint that it's like the year 2100.
Yeah,
because they say it's the they don't say start of the millennium. They say it's like
the start of a new century.
But we know that we're not close enough. In 1970, when this film was being written and conceptualized, they knew in 30 years they wouldn't have that ability to make a ship go that far, that big or that far. So it sounded like there was a lot of war going on. So it sounds like whatever happened with the Cold War, we might be inferring it, but there was another big war, and we're now in the last 100 years since like the year 2000 found a way to unify ourselves and going into space.
But there's still like a United States with 50 stars. There's still clearly a Canada as well.
Yes, because he has different badges on his jacket from, I guess, missions or troops and things that he's done.
Yes.
And
then there's lots of corporate logos that are exactly the same that you would have seen in the late 60s, early 70s.
Yeah.
So you can say that maybe it's 2001, maybe, but that's really stretching it.
The scale of it, they were smart not to say a specific year, but to me it wouldn't be 2200 based on what's there.
Definitely not.
So I, in my mind, it's it was set 120, 130 years in the future.
Yes, and that's fine. It doesn't really matter for the plot of the story,
because it would also take that long, in my mind, to completely decimate every forest
and pave everything. Yeah. So he kills the rest of the crew, and here's like the one redeeming thing for a character in this entire movie, besides his like show of a little bit of guilt. He had a little bit of guilt, but the fact that there's like the commander of this entire fleet knows that he's alive and doesn't think he's at fault, and is doing everything he can to rescue this guy.
Because it's unfathomable that he would have turned traitor.
Yeah, exactly. So this guy's like, I'm going to save you, and then he's like, oh shit, he puts the Valley Forge on like a course to go through Saturn's rings. And these ships aren't designed to, quote, ride the rapids. It's not a very realistic portrayal of what going through Saturn's rings would be. But
it's 1972, so let's...
Yeah. So I give it a pass. But this guy's like, son, I'm sorry. Do you have any family that you want me to tell anything to? And he's like, no, I don't have anybody, blah, 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 blah. And he goes through Saturn's rings, and then that's the last that we hear from this guy. Last, quote unquote, because at this point the main character is basically just alone on the ship, drifting further and further away from the sun.
And this is when he programs the robots. One of them is malfunctioning. And he names them Huey, Dewey, and Louie.
Yeah,
which I thought was kind of neat. And you can see them learning, and also when they're out doing their maintenance jobs where they're repairing outside of the ship, because it seems to be that was their purpose, was to fix patches, things that they couldn't normally do. There's a certain points in the film after they start learning, they start talking to each other.
Yes.
Out there. You don't get to see what they're saying, but they're clearly communicating with each other when he's not around.
And I think they're worried about him.
Yeah, he the more he programs them to be more human-like, and they're like precursors to R2-D2.
Yes.
And they're not like C-3PO humanoid-looking robots. So, and he calls them droids too. So, they do clearly care about him, and he's training them on how to be farmers, and you get the hint that he's telling them all about the history of the world and everything. And he comes to the conclusion that he gets in communication randomly with the I guess captain or admiral, whoever it was that was trying to find him. So you find out that they don't say the length of time, but it's been weeks at least.
I would say it's been months and months.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of problems happening on the ship, that like there's errors and damage that's compounding on itself.
Yeah, and yeah, there's that. One robot is completely non-functioning. One of them can function, but not great. It's just basically there to be a companion. We should say that when he does kill his last crewmate with the shovel, first thing after reprogramming the robots and them fixing his leg is he's not lost his humanity entirely. He tells the robots how to dig a grave and bury him to give him a proper burial.
Yeah, and the robots bring out a literal ditch witch to dig the trench because he won't do it himself. It's a branded ditch witch, which is crazy. But
yes, so he finally gets in contact. They're like, "Son, oh my God, we found you." And he's like, "You were looking for me? Why?" He's like, well, "We weren't going to stop looking for you."
Yeah, you're a part of the team. We're going to do our damnedest to find you and rescue you.
And he's like, "You've got to detach. You got to do this, and he goes, "Okay, whatever." And that's when he decides that he can't go back because he'll be found out, and he's a coward.
Yeah.
But he also realizes that if they find him, they're going to destroy the plants and everything involved. So he takes the one robot with him, as I guess for whatever reason, because I guess he wouldn't be useful there. I don't know why. But he takes it with him, and I think, is it Huey or Dewey? One of the two that's fully functional. The one that, I think it's the one even that did his surgery. And he tells him, "You're in charge now." And he figures out a way, because he realizes and that the robots, I guess they're solar powered or something, so his battery will never die. And he decides, okay, he's going to take one of the nukes with him, blow himself up.
Yep.
And then the one final dome that had the temperate area that was more similar to the northeast of the U.S.
Yeah.
With the rabbits and everything.
That had like a hawk in it and like
rabbits
and
the stuff that you'd see with vegetation that was like, that had seasons.
Yeah.
Because the desert one was gone. There was another one that was gone that was the more like southern style. So he leaves it to him for, I guess the idea is in perpetuity. The robot will know how to guide it out of the way of debris or out of the way of suns or anything, and potentially for thousands of years, a little piece of human, I guess what's left of nature, would still survive with the robot being its caretaker.
Yeah, and then he blows himself up.
With the other robot, which he didn't have to do. Yes, he was malfunctioning, but he viewed it as like a mercy killing. But the robot, maybe the other robot would have wanted to have a companion. Maybe the other robot could have fixed him.
I mean, you made them like more and more human, and it was clear that they liked each other's company. So now you've just ensured that this poor robot is off by himself. I don't know. Like, okay, yeah, I have things with this movie.
Yes, and I'll briefly go over. There's a lot of special features. There was some stuff produced about 20 years ago when I guess the DVD collection came out for the 30th anniversary. Interviews with Bruce Dern talking about how he appreciates the movie, and there was a lot of a bit of a fluff piece back and forth. There's behind the scenes on the music, on Douglas Trumbull, and explains, he even goes into detail. This is, again, 20 years ago, and he was saying exactly where the cinema was moving. He's like, they said, well, where do you see the next 30 years of cinema going? This was in 2001. He said, well, regular theaters are basically going to be closed. They won't survive as television gets better and better. He's like, the only thing going to save it would be the special presentations, which he said were IMAX, and he listed another brand, but it's basically AVX or these other big formats. And he's like, he goes, IMAX will do it, and then he said the only thing that could possibly save cinemas is probably digital 3D VR cinema.
Yeah,
and it's like exactly where it was, only not in 30 years, more like 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
So he's clearly a very intelligent person, and had his finger on the pulse when it came to where theater tech was going, because he said in there, he's like, well, high definition will catch on in the next couple of years, even though at the time people were saying it wasn't going to catch on until 2010. And it's like, this is 2001. By 2007, pretty much everybody had an HDTV. Mm-hmm. So again, very prophetic. I wouldn't be surprised. Like, the tech that he's developed is on par with what James Cameron's company did for the Real D stuff. Mm-hmm. Only his stuff has been more in VR. Like, he even developed like 3D VR animation. Apparently, he made a video game that wasn't picked up by Universal that would have incorporated VR headsets in the early '80s.
Wow.
Yeah,
this guy's way ahead of his time.
Yeah, so from a technical standpoint, the film holds up as far as the models.
Absolutely.
The attention to every detail.
I would say that the model work here makes the movie hold up even today visually. Visually, this movie is amazing. 10 out of 10 if you're just talking about the visuals, the production, the little details that they put everywhere to make that kind of lived-in world.
Yeah, the closest thing to it is if you've ever seen the movie called Moon. That with models, similar budget, but that's more, I think it's 2009 when that came out. It's that amount of detail. It's a very limited, 2 or 3 sets that they did for it, but every nook and cranny has something in it that makes sense.
Yeah. And the attention to detail, like as time goes by on the ship, even if you're not really aware of how much time is going past, you can see it via the garbage that he's leaving behind is getting piled up in the control rooms or in his living quarters.
Well, and something that you don't normally see in these kind of films, his hair got a little longer and more ratty. Like he wasn't taking care of himself. His jacket gets more torn. Every time there's a tear, he wasn't able to fix it anymore.
Yeah. So, I mean, the production stuff in this, the visual effects, it makes this movie worth watching just for those. The plot, I have real problems with it.
Go ahead. Do you have anything in particular other than just the logic?
So the entire idea, the idea that Earth is paved, fine. I don't agree. I don't think that's reasonable, but it's a sci-fi premise. But here you have this incredible investment from Earth in general of, I don't know, a dozen or so spaceships that have a dozen domes that you've spent years cultivating, curating, and maintaining to keep safe, because it's clear that the planet feels it is imperative to keep these things safe. And then all of a sudden, one day, screw it, just blow it all up.
Yeah, there had to be more there. It sounded like all they had to do to fix it would have been intercepting some sort of communications that there actually was, a war or something breaking out, or political strife on Earth.
But why wouldn't it be? And I agree, but why couldn't it be a war about these ships and their contents? Because they are literally priceless. These are the last things.
Well, yeah, like if they had started receiving conflicting messages, one of them saying jettison and destroy, and one of them saying no, bring them home, we need it.
Yeah,
because then they could have been interpreting. Wait, is it a case of one side there's now a war and one side desperately needs food and the other side wants to starve them out?
Yeah, so you have the leadership that is clearly evil and doing something really wrong. You have the other crewmates that are at least jerks and aren't very sympathetic at all and are kind of gleeful about going around and killing animals now. Oh, you're going to die in a fire, Mr. Lizard. So are they sympathetic? So when they get killed, you're not really sorry for the fact that they get killed. But then again, the main character is the one that just killed them. And one of them with a freaking shovel. He killed them personally with a shovel and nuked the other ones.
The only sympathetic character in this is his captain on the ground base.
Yeah, the guy that's actually chasing after him because he cares about a lost guy on a ship.
And maybe the rabbit.
Maybe the rabbit.
Dewey, maybe.
Yeah, the robots, they're robots. I guess they're kind of cute, but they're not really sympathetic.
Like at the end, you see that he connects with them more than anything, and he's more sad about having to leave them or leave one of them than people. It's it shows how detached he became from humanity.
Yeah, is that the message of the film? That he was the champion of Mother Nature and became as robotic and lifeless as everyone else. But if that's the case, then why did you have this voice on the communications that was passionate about saving his life and going across the entire solar system chasing him just to save his life.
Yeah, save one of the crew.
Yeah, just to save one of the crew on the off chance that they were still alive. I don't know. Like, it really breaks down for me on that.
There is a special feature that was produced just for this set that showed an animatic of the original script. And the original script before Stephen Bacco came on board, when it was just Michael Cimino, before he did Deer Hunter. So, that movie's dark.
Yeah.
The original was much more militaristic. In the original opening, how we see, what was it, like 2 or 3 minutes of nature with really, really super high quality macro shots of like slugs and birds and
flowers
and butterflies and stuff.
Yeah.
The original shot was going to be a black screen opening up where it's fuzzy, and then when it comes into focus, it's the crew already dead.
Okay, wow.
With blood and guts everywhere, like them being torn apart, and with then panning up with showing Dern's character about 10 years older than he was, with gray hair, having just murdered the crew, and then it was going to cut to a scene that they never even shown with the captain that was trying to find him.
Mm-hmm.
But what it really is, it's an entire military ship full of soldiers with weapons coming to board and take over. And
wow,
it was going to be, and they wanted to return. It was literally going to be the man military versus nature. And there was more to it, but it was much more grisly, much more dark. It was basically the Deer Hunter.
Ugh.
Whenever like they show like there was even going to be scenes, similar to like the Russian roulette scene, that sort of, like, it's not exactly 1-for-1, but apparently the only thing that they did was they had that and they were going to produce it. The only note they ever got from the studio was, you can't do that.
That's too dark.
You can't do, because this was the height of the Vietnam War. They wanted to make it a science fiction anti-Vietnam movie, and this was, the Deer Hunter is what signaled the beginning of the anti-Vietnam movie. And it took him years to get that movie made. So, they had to wait till Nixon was out. They had to wait till, like, you couldn't do it until the Carter administration. So,
another thing in this movie that just baffles me. It just absolutely baffles me. You have this guy that's like Mr. Uber nature, right? Like, he clearly has been on many missions to save nature. He's a biologist at the very least. A horticulturalist.
He's a space gardener.
Yeah, he's a space gardener, but he doesn't understand the sun is needed for plants.
Yeah.
But full stop. He does not understand that sun is needed for plants.
Well, he wanted to figure out a way. They didn't do a good job of explaining it. What I interpreted was he found a way to not only use the regular sun, but whenever the sun was gone, to use solar panels to gather energy and then use sun lamps.
Yeah, at the end, after all the plants were dying and he couldn't figure out why. Like, I don't understand why all the plants are dying. It's the freaking sun, you idiot. You're so far from the sun and everything is dark. What do you expect?
My grandmother, who grew up on a farm in an island in Germany, who only went to grade 8, knows how the sun works for her garden.
Yeah, if this is supposed to be the guy that we're like trying to sympathize with, to be like, here's our hero, here's the person who understands what what Earth needs, and he doesn't have a goddamn clue. No, well, not only is he a murderer, but he's completely clueless.
So I would say, in conclusion, for me at least, it's an important film to watch for a lot of historical aspects of it. I can see why, looking at it from a perspective of 2021, looking back 50 years, going, I understand. You got to remember, there wasn't a lot like this at the time.
Oh yeah, no. This movie is stunning visually.
Even the message, take it or leave it. If you look, things that came out prior to this, other than like 2001 Space Odyssey, there was nothing that had this kind of technical level of expertise or care given to a science fiction movie. And prior to 2001, you had Forbidden Planet that had special effects that were really good.
Yeah.
You had Day the Earth Stood Still with a message, but they were that B movie quality for most science fiction. Nothing had the production values until 2001 came out. And you're like, holy shit, what is this?
Yeah.
And then, and this was only a couple years later. And then we have this gap where after this, you started seeing things like Logan's Run and other sci-fi come out, which in some cases are kind of hokey, but they usually had a decent message. Or Zardoz was right around this time. That was a couple years later, right? So you've got some weird shit that came out. But it wasn't until Star Trek and Star Wars that really took the reins from this. So I can see how this was very influential on the technical craft of science fiction and just the visual medium as a whole.
Oh, absolutely. When I was watching this, I tend not to read Internet Movie Database, or I don't do my research until after I've watched a movie. But all through this movie, I kept saying, this is Red Dwarf, the British comedy sci-fi show.
Yeah.
There are so many parallels to Red Dwarf here that I was shocked. And then I read trivia and things like that, and they're like, oh yeah, it completely influenced the creators of Red Dwarf, just because of it's the guy that's kind of by himself, living with artificial life forms. All the different shots of the ship kind of going past this big ship is, I don't know, for whatever reason.
The domes and everything, they almost look like the 90s, that terrible show Lex.
Oh, wow, Lex, yeah. I haven't thought about that in a while.
You're welcome. But I will say this. I finally figured out in my head why it looks so familiar to me, too. The big production that came out after this was a big hit. This was a pretty, not huge in the States. It was actually a bigger hit in Europe. But after this, he got Douglas Trumbull. His next project wasn't to do a movie. It was to do a TV show. And it was to be, at the time, the next big Star Trek show. Not Star Trek itself, but to be the Star Trek killer, in quotes.
No, like Battlestar Galactica?
Yeah, only they were like, we're going to make a serious show. And it ended up, it was going to be a production with, I think it was NBC, and they were going to give it millions of dollars at the time to make the pilot, make the whole set. And it was going to be co-produced with CTV in Canada. They were going to shoot it up here to save money. And then at the last minute, NBC pulled the plug, and it had to be completely produced in Canada. And it's called The Star Lost. So The Star Lost is interesting. I think it was Harlan Ellison wrote the story for it and the initial pilot, and Douglas Trumbull was the producer, technical director, everything. They did it on a shoestring budget. They went from, I believe it was $1 million an episode, which is insane for 1974. They went down to having $20,000 or $25,000 budgets per episode.
Oh, wow.
And they went from filming on 35 millimeter to 16 millimeter to last minute shooting on tape. The whole series is out on DVD. It's even on YouTube, I think, to watch for free. Now, it is the main actor from 2001. What's his name? Keir Dullea. Plays the main character. He's the star of the movie. It is about an Earth ship. I think they just call it the Ark or something. And it's got the same domes and everything. But instead of seeding or trying to build plants, it's all of Earth's civilizations, all of our close communities. So there's like, I'll get into it in a second, but it's the idea is the Earth is no longer habitable for some reason, and this is taking place hundreds of years in the future, and it focuses on this Amish family, and they live in this town. Everything looks completely normal, but they're told you can't go beyond a certain ridge. You just can't do it. It's against God's will. You'll die. And one guy gets curious, and he goes to what would be the edge of the ridge, and he touches the sky, but it's actually a wall.
Mm-hmm.
And he eventually discovers that they're living inside of a dome, and that they're in a pod that was to preserve the Amish peoples. And he leaves, gets banished by his leader and his girlfriend, and I think it's her brother or their friend come with them into this massive Ark ship that's like miles big. and they discover that they're on a collision course eventually with a star that will kill them, and there's no crew around. They don't understand what's happening. First of all, they don't understand any of it because they grew up traditional Amish.
Okay.
They get introduced to the ship's computer, and the ship's computer is like, well, you got to go to the bridge and you got to alert the crew so they can course correct. And they're like, where's the crew? And the computer's like, there's not enough data. They don't know what happened. And each episode is them finding their way to the bridge, finding their way to try to revive whatever crew is there, find out what happened. And each dome has a different civilization inside of it. Think Sliders or Stargate type thing. And Chekhov's in it a bit as well, and they find crew that's been cryogenically frozen. There might have been some sabotage involved, but the idea is they've been drifting for like 100 years, longer than they should have been. So it's like several hundred years in the future. They're now in space. They don't know what's going on, and it ended up getting, I think, 14 or 18 episodes. Then was canceled because of the budget mostly. And then it became a sort of a cult classic. There was a graphic novel made about it later on. It's one that I think mostly, I would love to see it remade now with a proper budget. It's worth watching because it's the concepts are a lot more fleshed out than what was here. There is part of the nature involved, but a lot of it is just, there's that mystery of, what are we doing here? Why are we out here? Why does the Earth have to be reseeded somewhere else?
Yeah. Okay. So I've listened to everything you said, and I looked it up. Yeah, there's 16 episodes, I guess.
Okay,
and I'm going to have to watch this. I'm going to have to watch it because, this seems far more interesting than Silent Running.
Yeah, and he produced and I think directed a couple of the episodes, and he did all the set designs, all that sort of stuff. And when you consider that it's like micro budget, we're talking Canadian TV budget that like was non-existent then because 95% of their budget was pulled by NBC.
Yeah. Low budget doesn't mean low quality. To me, like, some of my favorite science fiction is old Doctor Who episodes.
Think Doctor Who. Doctor Who, but they did the best they could. It's the best way to put it.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's some of the best science fiction you can get a hold of, to me.
Yeah, I think it's on YouTube. I will send a link. I'm pretty sure most of the episodes are up for free.
Oh, I've watched. I found it.
Okay.
Yeah, there you can find them for free, yeah.
So it is worth watching. So that is how I know Douglas Trumbull is from that. Okay. I remember growing up watching that reruns and then renting the tapes. And I remember there was a big hullabaloo about how they were marketing it as the next Star Trek. And then that fell through. He had a few other projects fall through. And then I think he only ever did one other film. And that was it. And then it was all in the technical side afterwards. So that's the connection, I think, here. This obviously has a much higher budget.
Oh, much higher. Like I said, the visual effects stand up to even today.
So, worth checking out. I would say sci-fi fans, this is one that I was surprised that neither of us had seen. Right? Like,
yeah, I'm surprised.
So
because it is so influential.
Like it has a list price of about $40, but I think most places are selling it for about $25. So if you're looking to fill up your sci-fi collection, like I'm somebody who loves like the Logan's Run movie.
Oh yeah,
I put it in the vein of that, only not as exciting, right? Like Logan's Run is an exciting film. This is tries to make you think film, but in reality, it's best not to think and just look at the beauty.
Yeah, you like you said, if this has a music only option, that would probably actually be a lot of fun to watch. Just with the music, none of the dialogue, because then you're not going to get all the nonsense and the nonsense of the plot. And yeah, regardless.
Yeah, and also if you've liked what was it, John Carpenter's Dark Star, you'll probably like this too.
Dark Star, yeah, that's a good comparison.
Okay, I think that's probably going to do it for this episode. If you need to get in touch with us, you have any questions, comments, recommendations of films that may be similar to this, you can hit us up at ThisWeekInGeek on Twitter, feedback at thisweekingeek.net for email. I guess that's going to do it for Aaron and myself. Not much more. We don't have the regular Birdman outro, but that's going to be it. I guess we've ran the gamut of weird to fun to surprisingly okay.
I'll say that each one of these three I enjoyed watching for different reasons.
Yeah.
So
yeah, we weren't bored, by any means. We might have thrown up our hands going, what the F, a couple times, but other than that, I mean, it's worth watching each of these for their own reasons.
Exactly.
All right. So until next time, I think we'll be back maybe a week or two, depending on what we have to watch. That's going to do it. We're signing off.
See you later, folks.
At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought.
Thanks for listening to this episode of This Week in Geek. Hungry for more? Check out our website at thisweekingeek.net. You can subscribe to the podcast, browse our Twitter and Instagram, and leave your thoughts on today's topics. If you'd like to give us some feedback, send us an email at feedback@thisweekingeek.net. Tune in next time, and remember,
Lower your shields and surrender your listenership.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Thank you for your cooperation. Good night.
I beg you in the name of God, say something. Please.
Don't lie to me. You took biscuits from somebody from school yesterday.
He doesn't like you.
Yes. You have the whole power in this world to deal with him. Now wait. Take this.
Hey, evil traitors don't come again, oh. Man, where they give beggars money, make it think twice. The stable of World Choice Movies production will they bring on this ogbonge thriller film. Enjoyment in hell. Enjoyment in hell. See how man they turn to nightmare just because he give beggar money.
What do you mean, Doctor? Your wife was just going through pains for nothing.
God! Hey, which kind of life be this? Which kind of evil world we they so? How can a woman born yam instead of picking? Hey, enjoyment in hell. Enjoyment in hell. Yes, the evil ones no go and punish you. God passed them. Enjoyment in hell. Enjoyment in hell. But Manuel Udoku, Georgina Onoha, Desmond Elliott, Ayo Adesoya Asan, Angela Phillips, Rosemary Onyebuchi, introducing Miracle Enoch. All these people, they inside this flame. Director na Emeka Nwabeze. Producer na Stephen Anozie. Marketer worldwide na World Choice Movies Production. 4 Edidile Idumota Lagos. G5 Electromat Onitsha. 4 Park Road Aba Abia State. Enjoyment in hell. Enjoyment in hell. Go get your copy. Oh.